Australian Misha Zelinsky is a foreign policy and political warfare expert who lives in the Illawarra, south of Sydney, but he joins us tonight from Lviv. Misha, thank you very much for your time. Volodymyr Zelensky has become renowned, hasn't he, for stirring speeches and courage during this crisis. I mean, just how important are those public addresses for the Ukrainian forces and the people, of course?
Well, it's cometh the hour, cometh the man, and people may not know this, but he was a Jewish TV comic, come president, come wartime leader. And his speeches now are frankly quite Churchillian. If you watch him, addressing the European Union, addressing his people, doing, essentially selfie videos from the streets, saying he's not leaving Kiev, he's fighting hard. One of the legendary quotes now will be, "I need weapons, I don't need a ride." When the Americans were encouraging him to move his government from Kiev to Lviv, he defiantly stayed and rallied the people around him. And they're responding to it. So it's not just the military, it's ordinary Ukrainians are rallying to take up arms, fighting in the streets. I've seen vision, it's incredible vision coming through all across the country of Ukrainians not just fighting, but you've got old people, young people standing together, stopping tanks with their bodies and telling the Russians to go home. So it's extraordinary. And, you can't quite quantify it, but the leadership of Zelensky is absolutely rallying people to the cause. And it seems to have slowed down the Russian invasion, at least for now, mate.
Yeah, so, I mean, has that taken Putin and his troops by surprise? And in your view, has Moscow's strategy seemed to change over the week? Or is it a case of just do not underestimate Vladimir Putin because he could still do anything?
Well, we should never underestimate Vladimir Putin. He's clearly a man that's unhinged. Anyone who watched his speech Monday night a couple of weeks ago was a dark, troubling speech we haven't seen really since the 30s in our history. So, it is worrying. Having said that, the expectation, Putin was selling a quick victory to his people. He thought he could knock over the Ukrainians, have control of Kiev within the first 24 to 48 hours, have Zelensky marching down the street, get a puppet regime in place, and then dare the West to come and get him. Hasn't happened. And so now they've dug in for an actual war of attrition, and that is raising the costs on the Russian side. Now, there's no official estimates, but there are Ukrainian reports of thousands of Russian troops dead, hundreds of tanks destroyed, hundreds of helicopters destroyed. So there's significant costs on the Russians now, and the pressure's building on Putin. Sanctions are biting on him too, so he's under pressure at home, right? So the ruble has collapsed. Interest rates have doubled from 10% to 20%. 20%, imagine that, right? We've got nearly 0% in Australia. And so the economy there is cratering. He's under pressure from his oligarchs who can no longer travel around the world. They're being sanctioned. They can't get their money out. So these Russian billionaires that have stolen Russia's wealth, they're stuck in Vladimir's panic room nation with him. Yeah. And so they can't go to their French Riviera super yachts. They can't go to take their kids to their private schools in London. They're stuck in Russia. Schools in Moscow, they might be all right, but they're not schools in London. And Crimea in the summertime is not quite the French Riviera.
That's a good point. But Misha, also, I mean, Putin can control the message on his side of the border. But in the West and in Ukraine, he can't. And as you've said before, it's a smartphone war and everything is out there.
Absolutely. This is a smartphone war. In 1991, we saw the first television war with CNN covering the Gulf War. The extraordinary bit about the smartphone warfare going on here is that the Russians are losing it. So the Russians, have been experts of political warfare, of information warfare. But on this occasion, they're not the scrappy disruptor. They're the big aggressor, and they are struggling to control the narrative. The West and the Ukrainians really have largely won the battle for hearts and minds. Everything the world can do to rally to the Ukrainian cause is critical. The Russians are losing the battle, at least for now, but they are experts in trolling. They are experts in political warfare. We saw what they did in the 2016 US election, most famously, but they are really good at controlling the information space, and no doubt they'll rally along with their armies over the next weeks and days.
It is. I think Putin has underestimated the Ukrainian people and underestimated this whole new alliance of all sorts of Western nations as well. It's going to be fascinating. Misha Zelinsky, really good to talk to you from the streets of Lviv. Thank you.